Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today we have somebody on. I'm super excited to talk about Jay Schwied. Or did I mess it up again? I
Got it right
got it.
this
I
time.
got it this time. You own a interesting business we're going to dive into today. A little creative, not a full-on agency, but it's called ephelantsZ, and I'm just curious about everything you do. So let's start with kind of the idea of ephelantsZ, because when I first saw it, I also thought elephants, and you were telling me before the podcast how that's how I used to say it. And at first, I'm like, oh, that is elephant in my mind.
Yeah. Well, the logo, what throws people off even more
Yeah.
is the logo are elephants. So,
Yep.
yeah, the name. I guess I'll tackle that one first. And the name
Yeah.
basically came as I segued out of my previous business into this new company that I didn't totally know what it was going to be. We knew something in entertainment,
Hmm.
and I had a lot of friends that were trying to help and business advisor. We're trying to come up with names and what do we call it and all sorts of stuff. And the one thing we knew is I didn't want it to have my name because all my previous businesses somehow had my name. I didn't
Hmm.
want that at all. And we came up with all these cool names and names, but they never, nothing ever resonated. And then one morning I just woke up and I said, listen, we're calling it Effluence. And
I love
everybody
it.
was like, what the hell are you even talking about? And what does that even mean? I was like, it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah.
we're spending all this energy on the name. We're not spending any energy on the business. And I want to focus on the business, not on the name. So I said it doesn't really matter because if we do a good job, then that's all that's going to matter. And they'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Effluence, they do blah, blah, blah. And if we don't do a good job, then it really doesn't matter how great a name we came up with. So
Exactly.
that's basically how that came about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun. Names are interesting because sometimes you think it could make or break stuff, but I feel like a lot of times it just like can help it, or sometimes it doesn't even matter. Like you think about all these other things, just like even things you use around your house that just like, oh yeah, that's the name because that was maybe the biggest brand at the time, and that
Yeah.
becomes the default. Like Uber is like, now just
Yeah. I mean,
synonymous with,
in
you
England,
know,
they all call vacuum cleaners Hoovers
oh, because it's, oh, how fun.
because
Yeah.
that was the first vacuum cleaner that they
Yeah.
had there. And everybody's like, oh, get the Hoover. And I'm like, but it's not a Hoover.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter. So yeah, I find that sort of stuff interesting as well. I think people something happens and then it sticks. I don't it's hard to understand how certain things stick. Like
Yeah.
why, I mean, I personally like having cereal anytime, day or night, but
Sure.
cereal is considered a breakfast food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Like and just
Yeah.
that's it. Like, this food goes with this. Like because somebody said it, somebody else liked it, and then it got and
Branded.
it's
Yeah.
kind of branding and marketing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's yeah. So but
So
whatever.
where did you kind of get the idea to start doing more of this? I know I want to call it an agency. I know it's you don't call it an agency, but how
Yeah.
did you get into kind of this world of everything creative in a way? Because I was looking at your site and videos, and you do a lot of stuff. So how does that format work for you, and kind of where are you involved in it?
Well, I've been in and around entertainment my whole life in various different things, from sports to hospitality, fashion, music, film, all these different areas. And I started this company, and a bunch of friends of mine were like, "Let's maybe do something." That's we kind of knew those were the areas we wanted to
Hmm.
be in. I had done events before. I'd been involved in different things. More friends asking me to help than me actually running points on a lot of those things. Events we did run point on, but a lot of the stuff is just kind of friend would say, "Hey, could you read the script?" Or, "Hey, I'm going
Hmm.
to do this movie. Do you know how this?" Go to recording studio, and they were like, "Come check out this new album. We're going to write some song, whatever." And so I've been around it, but not physically being like, "Okay, it's up to me to actually make sure this works."
Yeah.
And marketing and tech of things that have just always kind of been in my world and kind of come naturally to me. I'm not a marketing person per se. I'm not a coder, but I understand how marketing works, why it works, how it's supposed to works, what doesn't. Um, I work with people that are much better at a lot of that than I am. And they say, okay, we need to have a go to market strategy. We would do this. And I was like, I get that. I'm not the guy to write that or the person to write that, but I could be like, okay, why this first? Why not that second? What if we do this and this? And I somehow have figured out ways to do that that works for a lot of different people. And I've had people come to me and, humongous companies, people
Yeah.
come to me saying, we've internally had meetings about you and we're jealous at how you pulled this off. and we're paying millions of dollars for something, and we know you didn't pay a penny, and you got better press than we did. So I'm not to toot my horn, but it's just
Yeah,
something
no,
I understood it, and I was like, this seems logical to me, and if it
sure.
works, then I'm right, and if it doesn't, I'm wrong. So, um,
Yeah,
and tech for me, like I'm a big Star Trek fan from the coolness factor of it.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
all science fiction stuff I think is super cool, but like Star Trek, there's certain examples in Star Trek, like how if you something wrong with your body, they put a little device on you, and now you no longer have cancer. Like, oh, your aneurysm's gone away. Like
yeah.
that's cool, and being able to just beam yourself across the world, so having to go through getting on a plane or a boat or whatever.
Yeah, I do prefer Star Trek over Star Wars. I could never understand Star Wars. It wasn't like techie enough, you know? It
Well,
just didn't.
I get it. Like
Yeah.
I do prefer Star Trek over Star Wars, but I get science fiction as a whole. Like I just love all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't aspire to be something in Star Wars per se. Like I can see it, I can see how it's based on life and this and that, whatever.
Yeah.
I get the story behind it. Star Trek has that coolness thing. We're going to get in this ship. It's going to do this. We're going to have this device. It's going to do that. We're going to zap you. All that sort of coolness is very interesting to me. But from a business perspective, I've always used technology as a way to kind of make it easier for myself, but more importantly,
Sure.
for anybody that's on the team to work. So, I mean, now everybody's using technology in one form or another, whether we like it or not. We all are. I do like it, but a lot of people don't. But you're still using it. Like everybody has
Yeah.
a cell phone. Everybody has, So, but it's not so much about me and my benefits of it because I can kind of navigate a lot of stuff. It's about like, okay, well, we've got X amount of people on a team, and everybody has to have access to the information, and everybody has to be able to get their job done. And also, this person may not be here tomorrow. Not that
Hmm.
they're getting fired or quit, but there may be some other thing we need to send them
Sure.
off to do, and they're the perfect person for it. Now, what do we do? Well, if it's just a piece of paper and they have the paper with them and they took it on the plane instead of leaving it in the office or whatever, we're dead.
Yeah.
So we've always used it, even in businesses that people would be like, why do you need technology there? It made sense and ultimately made
Sure.
it easier for us to function and do stuff. So a lot of it comes from me understanding how technology works. Again, I'm not a coder, but I've had a lot of projects that I've worked on, and developers something say, well, I can't do this or this can't work. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And have you tried this or have you thought about
Hmm.
that? Or like this has to go to here and that has to go to there. And that's how you make this piece or that part work. So it's something that I just understand and I'm able to communicate with the people that have to do the work. So these things just all got incorporated in because people were always asking us for help with these things. So we were either making an introduction or saying, oh, you should try this or you should do this. But for a lot of people, that wasn't enough. A lot of
Hmm.
people were like, well, I appreciate that, but can you be involved in it or can you somehow? So it just made sense to kind of be like, okay, let me see who do we have in our network, who do we have in our world that likes doing the stuff, that has the manpower if we get a project, that can work with us, that understand the way we work, and we can maybe package that if it's ever needed. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it came about. There wasn't this plan per se. It just kind of this made sense, so we did that. That made sense, so we did that. And
Yeah. And
so
and with all the technology, I mean it's changing all the time. I mean, ChatGPT just came out with their like kind of storefront app store in a way. They use different versions of ChatGPT. What are kind of the tools I guess you're using right now to kind of advance a lot of stuff? Because I mean, it's it is crazy when you start talking to a lot of people how they just don't utilize a lot of stuff in front of them that makes it so much easier. For example, my wife, she like doesn't want to use stuff. I'm like, oh, you could just upload that to ChatGPT and literally ask it like, how many times was this person mentioned in the article, or how many times was this asked? And I think a lot of times it also comes down to the curiosity of it. So you're obviously curious about it too, because you're diving in early ahead of time. Like maybe you bought the new Apple Vision Pro too. I don't know, but just like what are the tools that you're excited about right now that maybe not everybody knows about, or maybe ways you're using these tools that could help somebody just kind of get something done a little faster? Because I love that.
yeah, so we've been working with AI or people on our team for I mean, years, like it's
Yeah.
8 years, 9 years, 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. We've worked in blockchain for, you know, 7 or 8 years. And um, I'm tech agnostic by default. And everything we build and everything we do is tech agnostic. Like at the end of the day, the user, the client, or whatever you want to call them, but let's say the end user who we
Sure.
build things for, whether that's a business or whether that's individual, doesn't care what technology you use. They don't
Yeah.
care. There's the old story about like, do you want the sausage or do you care what in the sausage or you just want the sausage? Like that sort of thing. Like nobody wants to
Hmm.
know what's in the sausage.
Yeah.
Some people do, and then you have to kind of walk them through and explain it to them. And 9 times out of 10, no disrespect to people, it's going to be over their heads because it's like talking to a doctor, right? Like if you're not a doctor, they can get into all the little details about how they're going to perform the surgery, but you
Yeah.
don't really understand that. You're just like, oh, you sound like you know what you're doing. Sure, do it, go for it. So we look at all these different things. I mean, there's new things coming all the time. Um, I'm not a jumping on the bandwagon kind of guy. I'm not someone who follows trends. I'm not saying we set them. I mean, sometimes we do, but it's not about that either. It's about like this seems logical. This is what's happening,
Yeah.
and what I do and or I try to balance is I'm a big fan of having respect for everything that's come before, good, bad, or indifferent, because you have to understand how you got here. If you don't know how
Hmm.
you got here, you can't necessarily get to the next place. But I'm always looking, many, many, many steps ahead. Like, well, what happens when this happens? And if this actually takes off, okay, what's that going to mean for this?
Yeah.
And so I try to look at not what's right here today, but like, okay, where is this going? Like, for example, like Web3, for example, which was all this hype and all this stuff, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. In my personal opinion, there's no chance, less than zero chance, that Web3 is the thing that everybody and their mother is going to use. Web4, on the other hand, which isn't a thing, will probably be
Yeah.
because Web3, and it's interesting how it's the odd number and the even number, but like, Web 1.0 was very cumbersome, was very difficult. It didn't look nice. Nobody used it.
Hmm.
I mean, I used it.
Yeah.
Some
People
people used
used
it.
it, but it wasn't
It was not a
fully
mainstream
adopted.
thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
everybody had it. It was adapted by Web 2. So Web 3 is kind of the Web 1, and Web 4 is a thing because whether it's the clunky glasses, whether it's the I don't want to sit in every meeting with an avatar, like
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
too complicated to buy a coin. Why do I need a coin for this? Why can't I just do this? Why can't somebody make that easier for me?
Yep.
That now you have to start with Web3 because otherwise there's
You can't
nothing.
get there.
So
Yeah.
can't get to 4 without getting to 3. I mean, people try, but it just doesn't work. So I look at that and say, okay, I see
Uh,
the logic in this, and then there's other things that I'm like, this. There's no chance this can work on a grand scale. This is going to be
mhm.
Betamax. This is going to be that thing that some people are going to love. It's going to be amazing if they go down the road of market it for an exclusive elite group, super expensive. That's fine. But if they try to
Yeah.
do this thing which is really a niche thing, and try to make it mainstream, it just won't work. So we try to kind of always look at that thing, and we experiment a lot. We try different things.
Yeah.
We toy around with stuff, but um,
What
yeah,
What are some of the things? Because I feel like you're not a trend guy, but you're almost in this group of people that are thinking differently and interacting with people that you're thinking about. Well, how does this work? Why does this work? What are the things that you're interested in, I guess? Because it's more your interests that are going towards that way, right? So you're using blockchain 8 years ago. If you mention that on the street to somebody, they might think like, what, you're playing with like Lego blocks at home or something. And now, people are like, oh yeah, I kind of know what blockchain is. But I think it's interesting because you're focusing on stuff that where it's going instead of like, oh, this is the trendy thing, let's use this right now and make this popular. But are there anything in like your inner circle of people that you're interested in a sense, like, oh yeah, we're actually developing this, or we're all looking at this site, type of like movie, like people are like, oh yeah, we really love short form, or we love this. I don't know, it's interesting because I think it's like they used to say, like the nerds are the ones that are basically predicting the future because we're all using all the stuff first before it gets to the mainstream, right? So you're already talking about Web 4, which not a thing yet, but in a way it will, it almost has to be a thing.
For
Yeah.
sure, it for sure
Yeah.
will. Yeah, so whatever it's
Yeah.
going to be called, it's going to be
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they come up with a better name than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I think I'm always looking at how I can make things better. I'm not
Hmm.
one to reinvent the wheel. Like
Sure.
I don't see the logic in that. I know there's a lot of people that do that. They're like, "Oh wow, I'm going to make this wheel faster." I'm like, "That's cool," but I don't. My brain doesn't work that way. My heart doesn't work that way. I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
I want a faster wheel as much as the next guy, but I'm not the guy to do that. But if a wheel were square and it was clunkety clunketing down the hill, I'd be like, no, 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 we have to fix that. So I'm more of like, look, there's a lot of things we do that are band-aids in life,
Hmm.
right? Like now they're talking, which I understand, and I'm not in the space, but I'm around people that are in the space.
Yeah.
They talk about that we're living longer, but we're not healthier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're sicker longer.
Yeah.
Seems insane
Yeah.
that
It doesn't
anybody
seem
would do
good.
that,
Yeah.
but that's apparently what's happening. Okay, that to me is like that's a problem. Like
Hmm.
these are things that I look at and I say, okay, no, 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 no. So to that point, when someone comes up with like, oh, take this thing and you're going to live longer, I'm starting to ask 100 questions. I'm like, well, what does it mean I'm going to last? Well, how am I going to last? Am I going to get shorter? Am I going to get fatter? Am I going to
It'd be
be
weird if
healthy?
you got shorter, but yeah.
It happens though. We all do get shorter. I think it would be
Yeah. Yeah.
better
Yeah.
if we got taller. I think that would be cool as hell. Is like
Yeah.
as you get older, you get taller. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's fun with all the ideas of just like the health thing too,
yeah,
There's so many different books out there, so many different documentaries. I've been listening to, the Dr. Hubermans and the Peter Attias, just like the guys that are talking about kind of like breaking down this advanced science so like, simple people like me can understand like, oh yeah, if you eat less or just fast a little or if you do this and work out harder, you're basically going to be healthier. And it does seem like, I mean, this is a whole different, topic, but it does seem like medicine is keeping us alive longer, but really we should just be like eating better and working out and doing things that are simple, like basic in a way, right?
well, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. If you think about it, like the simplest things that our great 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 grandparents did. When you get sick, you have chicken soup, right?
Yeah.
Like, and to that point, no, not organic, healthy, good for you chicken soup. Heavy fat
Hmm.
chicken soup because the fat is what pulls the infections through your system so that you get healthier. I mean, the heat
Yeah.
is quite obvious, I think, to the average person even, but it's the fat, it's that stuff that technically you probably shouldn't eat all that fat, right?
Yeah.
But if you eat it for that week that you're ill, you will probably get better and you'll probably get better faster rather than doping yourself up on this over the counter drug or that over the counter drug that masks everything and you're not
Yeah.
really getting healthier. So my father had this cute little thing that he said. He said, there was a time that when a baby was born, they said they have to sleep on their back. So parents all let the baby sleep on the back.
Hmm.
And then, of course, babies have a tendency sometimes they can get sick at night, so they throw up a little bit. But when they throw up and they're on their back, they could swallow their vomit and they could choke and they could die. Like, okay, we have to stop doing this. So 10 years later, the doctors all decide, okay, that's not a good idea. Let's put them on their stomach because that way, if they throw up, it'll go out and it's out
Yeah.
of their system. And so they're like, yeah, except but now the baby is suffocating because their
Yeah.
face is planted on the bed. They're like, oh, okay, we should that. So eventually, they decided the baby should sleep on their side. And he's like, and that is the way the world works, right? He's like, you have to go in and try and find some sort of logical, like just because somebody says to do this, is that necessarily what to do? Now, I'm not saying if I get to a red light, I'm like, I don't think so. Like, but I do also understand that,
Yeah.
let's say you and me and a large percentage of the population don't need a red light to
Hmm.
know that when I get to the intersection, I should probably look because there may be cars coming. You don't really need the red light. Like it's not there for you. It's for the person that, all due respect to them, maybe just doesn't have the intelligence or doesn't have the foresight or doesn't have the thought for others that you're right. Like I'm not when I'm getting to the red light or the intersection, I'm looking because I don't want to hurt somebody. If I just go flying through the intersection, I may hurt somebody. I may hurt myself too, but I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about that. I don't want to hurt this poor innocent person that's just minding their own business because I'm being a jerk.
Yeah.
So there's things in society that I think we have to have as like these guardrails, as they say, and like, guardrails for AI and guardrails for this and
Hmm.
there's a logic to it, but and when you were saying stuff about like these guys that talk about this medicine and how like these wealthy people are going to have it, I don't think that way at all. I think about like people that I know or people that I may have not have met yet that don't have access to good food,
Hmm.
that don't get or get go to the doctor and get bad medical advice because they're in this minority group or that minority group. Those to me are the problems that have to be solved above all.
Yeah.
I mean, no, all due respect, but helping some rich person live another 5 or 10 years, I'm sorry, I don't think we need to spend billions of dollars on that. They can
Yeah.
figure that out on their own.
But
Like
it is hard to, it's hard, right? It's almost like you, in a way, have to be curious about your health to
yeah,
know a little more going in to ask the right questions. And I
yeah,
think that's really hard too, because, like, oh, my back hurts. Okay. So, like, what do I need to do? Like, what am I doing in my daily life? Or am I sitting too much? Am I working out wrong? And it's almost like a curiosity that takes you down
yeah.
this road. Like, okay, I got to stretch, or maybe I'll do some yoga. And I think that's a lot of people are just like, fix me up. Like, hey, I'm overweight. Give me that Ozempic shot and I'll be good.
Yeah.
And I think, listen, maybe not a lot of people think like us, but that I think being curious really does lead you to things that could benefit you in the long run. And a lot of people just don't maybe have the time for it or just don't care. They're like, yeah, just give me that pill, give me that shot, and we'll see what happens. Like, yeah, you're gonna get rid of my back pain. It's tough, It's
I mean, yeah, listen, teach his own, right? Like, if
yeah,
that's what works for you, I'm more of a, I want to know how to, I want to build a base foundation. And listen, I make a lot of mistakes. Every day
yeah.
of my life, I make mistakes. I know that.
We all do.
I
Yeah,
eat reasonably well, but plenty of stuff that I eat, like, I probably should have done that.
yeah.
Um, too much of this. I did work out. I didn't work out. Did I work out right? But I'm always looking at that and
Yeah.
thinking, okay, well, how do I learn from this experience? How do I make it a little better? And, listen, my grandmother, my father used to joke, was like, some doctor told her that Bayer aspirin was the only aspirin to take. She never took anything but Bayer aspirin her entire life. Didn't matter what anybody said. Didn't matter if you
Yeah.
said, listen, Bayer aspirin actually makes your legs fall off. She's like, the doctor said Bayer aspirin. I'm taking Bayer aspirin. End of conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's to me, you could take that back to education, right? Like you could go
Yeah.
all the way back to like education in school, which I mean, I'm a high school dropout, so I don't have real education. I was barely there when I was there.
Yeah.
But there's at home education, right? Like if the parents aren't educated, if the parents don't have the knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
how do they educate their children on
Yeah.
what's the right food to eat, how to exercise, how to learn, these are issues, and I think it's harder for a lot of people because of everything around them. There's a lot of, there's a lot of FOMO. There's a lot of these kids have this,
Mm-hmm.
we had that too. I'm sure you had that too. Every
Yeah.
generation has had that. This kid has a toy or this kid has access. They have a bigger house than us. But if your parents are there and guiding you along the way, and then you have a decent support system elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the neighbors, whether it's the school or the church or the synagogue or the mosque, whatever you belong to, whatever it is, um, those things they help. They
Mm-hmm.
help. I think finding ways to bring that sort of balance together, I think that stuff's important. I think
No,
for
yeah, I
for
agree. I
everybody's
mean,
sake.
it is hard because if if you're raising a kid by yourself or doing something, it's like, do you have time to do this or do you know any better? And I think that's hard, even for me. Like, when the presidential election comes up, I'm like, man, I don't know enough. Like, how am I supposed to vote on like my local senator? Like, I don't even know the guy, and you have to do so much research and understand a lot of stuff. And yeah, it's
That's
just
the point, right? Like they do that on purpose.
yeah,
Like
I know. I'm
it's
so
by
confused. I'm like,
design that you
yeah,
don't know who you should vote for, and
I
it's
know.
it's a real problem. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
real
yeah,
problem.
and I find it so confusing. It's like, how do you know? Like, there's 85 people have to vote for on this little like mail at home ballot. I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. It's crazy.
It's a complicated it's a mess, and this year is going to be a real mess.
Yeah.
What I tell you, this is
We're just reliving 2020 again. That's what it looks like.
unfortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we didn't get it right. We didn't get it right the first time. So, um, but yeah, it's kind of it is crazy. Like it
Yeah.
really is a crazy sort of situation, and we complain about all these things as humans, but we don't necessarily do anything about it. Like I
Yeah.
think as a society, we tend to just be like, "Oh, okay, I got through that." Like, well, actually, you did, but since you didn't fix what happened
Yeah.
that got you to that point, it's going to happen again. I mean,
Yeah. It's with anything,
people
really, right?
people who get ill, cancer or whatever, and then doctors say, "Okay, we need to change your diet. We need to do this.
Yeah.
We need to do this."
Gotta
They're
stop
like,
smoking.
okay,
Yeah.
fix my cancer. Is it
Yeah.
gone? Yes, it's gone. Okay, I'm going to go back to eating
Hmm.
donuts. No, eating donuts is what
Yeah.
caused partially why you had that cancer. They're like, yeah, but I don't have cancer right now. And it's like it's your art. You
I know.
you're
Yeah.
walking around in
It's
circles.
the
Yeah.
circle of life, right? With
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
All right, let's get back to some business talk. I was curious too. Do you have any suggestions? Say somebody's starting a business today, any platforms or ideas or different approaches to, we could just say marketing in general or business creatives. What or how would you get in front of a lot of people and have that company be successful? Because I think right now, with TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and, all this stuff, like I'm doing this podcast with you and like, we barely know each other. We're just getting to know each other on this podcast. But like, I have a business, I have a email marketing agency, I have all these things. And it's, I'm doing this podcast because I love talking to people that are in the business world and doing all these things. And it helps me learn a lot too, right? Like I get to learn from just like little insights from people. And even if no one listens to this, for me, I enjoy doing this. And it might be bad. It might be a bad thing, but I really do enjoy like having a conversation, especially, you're an interesting guy. You have experiences. And I think I just wonder like where do you see if you were starting a business today, how would you approach it? I guess that's my curiosity of the day.
After punching myself in the face and asking why am I really doing this? Yeah, it's a very tricky thing,
Yeah.
honestly. I think that with all the tools and all the technology that was supposed to make it easier, it's actually made it more complicated for a lot
Yeah,
of
it really
people.
has. Yeah.
I mean, my partner, and I help her with her business as a partner and as partners in life and stuff. But we deal with that, and we are dealing with that. Like with her business, she has a great business, great idea, great model, great everything, great name, great all this wonderful things. Moving the needle, not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, she started it 10 years ago, and I've been helping her for the past 3, 4 years. Back when she started, none of the big players were on social. Now everybody's on social. So you
Yeah.
can do this amazing video, you can do this amazing post. You're like, oh, this one's there. Definitely, this is going to get 1 million likes.
Yeah.
And then LVMH, or brand X, insert
Sure.
brand X here,
Yeah.
is
Not
going to
Twitter,
post
but
something and game over. Like that's it.
yeah.
Nobody saw your post. Nobody cared. Nothing happened. So I'd say, and I just had a meeting with a friend just earlier this morning, and I'm a big fan, and it's now somewhat of a thing. I'm a big fan of other people selling for you. And I don't necessarily mean selling, but like it's all about somebody else saying, hey, Michael's a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you get traction. And that's not going to go away. That's
Yeah.
because what's going to happen with AI as it grows and gets bigger and bigger, and this really can't happen fast enough, in my opinion. But the bullshit sorry, I don't know if I can curse on this, but whatever.
No, you can say whatever you want. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the lies, the changing of history, the false posts will be like, nope, sorry, we're not going to take it down, but we're
Mhm.
going to mark it and say this person has been known to, in the past month,
say
they've
false.
posted
Yeah.
75 false posts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Read for your entertainment purpose, do whatever you want, but our obligation as a platform is to do this. And the technology will do that. It's basically there already, but it's not really implemented. And there's probably a lot of bad reasons why it's not
Yeah.
implemented. And hopefully we'll get over that hump and people realize that's important. So same thing is like if there's more people saying, Michael's a great guy, he does good work, he's honest, his prices are fair, you know, he's more expensive or he's less expensive, but you get what you pay for. Like that, in addition to you explaining to people what you do, I think that broader approach is ultimately the best way to do it. And if you're
Hmm.
starting a business, again, it depends on what the business is, right? So like
Sure.
if you're providing service and it's one-on-one and you have a small team, okay, that's a very different kind of marketing than like I'm making a new glass. I have a new glass, I came up with a new design, I have to sell a million glasses. Okay, that's
Yes, that's
different.
hard. Yeah.
How do you get someone to understand this glass is better than that glass? You still need that other people saying, I had the best water out of this glass.
Yeah.
But you then also have to explain it in a different way. So I think you have to just kind of I think one of the things that's important was a few things. One, from a marketing perspective, is just be realistic because if you don't have the money to do what it really is going to take to get over that hump, to get the algorithms to really pick you up, don't do it. Like,
Hmm.
don't do it. Create the best content you can, be consistent, which is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
Consistently post, stay true to your story, throw in different things here and there. Don't sell all the time. People get tired of that in general.
Yep.
Make it interesting for people to want to be with you, but spend wisely. Don't just throw, 10,000, 20,000. I mean, some people have it, God bless them, but you're burning the money. Now, it's
Yeah.
not burning it if you're like, I have runway to do this for this amount of time. And if I do it in this amount of time, I can make up for it because what my product does and what it sells for, what the profit margin is, I calculated this out on a 3-year plan or whatever. No problem, go for it. But if you haven't thought those things through, don't go wasting your money because
Hmm.
something else is going to come up and you're not going to be able to do it. You need a new product or you need to hire somebody or you need to and now you like, where's my cash? It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And I really do think it comes down to like a community in a way, because that's kind of what you're building, right? Like if you're out there and saying, hey, Mike's really great at doing X, that's like, I guess, slowly building a community and telling other people about how great, hey, Jay's a great guy. He's doing really great work. You got to talk to him about this because he knows a lot. And it's hard. It's like online, you see it now with a lot of people just building those small communities and becoming pretty successful, right? Like everybody's got a niche. Like there's a Mr. Beast on YouTube, or you could go a tier down and there could be somebody else that has a smaller community. But that's what it feels like it's becoming. Like everybody's got, it doesn't feel, I grew up in like, I was in high school in the 2000s, and it feels like back then you would turn on TV and culture was there, and that was what you kind of knew was happening in the world. And today I think there's like a million subcultures happening at once, and barely like a overall, like, this is the vibe of right now. And it's super interesting because in a way, like I have one company, we sell dog products, and we're trying to sell to all different, versions of dog parents. Is that the Gen Z dog parent, or the millennial like me, or is it the older parent? So it's tough. It's a very weird world, but I think it's a lot of fun too, because you get to experiment, because there's so many, you might not know, but like, hey, I did this for X, but it actually worked out that Gen Z really likes how I did this or something. It's
Yeah, I mean, I
it's kind
think
of
it's also
crazy.
important to realize that these trends are going to change.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like you mentioned community. I mean, I've been talking about that for a few years. People started talking about it, a year or two, whatever ago. User generated content. People started talking about it. Don't forget how not long ago it was like influencer. Then it was micro influencer, and there was micro sub micro influencer, and then it was like, oh no, those don't work. Like, well, I know they don't work.
Yeah.
They did, they were never going to work.
Yeah.
But everybody jumped on that. Like, oh, stop spending 20,000 on one influencer, spend 20,000 on 20 influencers. Okay,
Yeah.
well, those 20 influencers don't have any market share. Nobody's
I
paying
know.
attention to their stuff. They're liking their stuff, but they're not converting. Like, you have to kind of look at that. This is maybe what's happening now. look at how did it get here,
Hmm.
because the community thing starts basically because people felt a disconnection with a brand. And so when someone says, wait a second, that brand is doing well, and there seems to be a lot of people that talk about that brand was doing so well, and all of a sudden nobody's buying that product anymore. What happened? Well, they didn't connect with their audience. They sold them stuff, but they didn't care. They
Yeah.
didn't have compassion for them. They didn't have whatever. And people were missing that. They were
Hmm.
lonely. So like, well, I'm part of something. I mean, again, I was talking about with this friend of mine earlier, who's a very smart guy. Apple, that's the textbook.
Yeah.
Apple products are not the best products in the world. They never have been. They probably never will be. Across the board, pick a product. There's one that's 10 times better than it, technologically speaking, physically speaking, everything else. But you buy an Apple product, you feel like I don't, because I don't like Apple products,
I'm
but
a big Apple guy.
so is my partner. So are most people that I know. But they're like, oh, but I feel like I'm part of something.
Hmm.
Yeah, not really. You just drank the Kool-Aid. But
Yeah.
cool that you feel that way.
I
Like if
drank the
that's
Kool-Aid. I'm in. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of people have, and I get it, and I totally get it. But I didn't read it, but I just got an email or something about it that a lot of companies are not gonna design apps for the Vision Pros or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that they like Netflix isn't supposedly you can just go on Safari and like, watch Netflix on Safari on the,
Yeah, but
I didn't buy one,
that's a
but
punch in their face. That's a punch in their
yeah, but I mean, obviously they didn't sell that many of them either. So I wonder if this is just like a test. Like I have the MetaQuest, two, and I also have the one. I'm not,
Have you
not
seen
that.
the Ray-Ban ones?
I have the Ray-Ban. The Ray-Ban,
How are they?
amazing.
I've
They're
heard
they're
that.
a lot of fun. I even got a pair for my dad. My dad's like
And you
75,
can
and
like post, right? Like you can do a video and post from it.
oh yeah, you gotta like open up the app on your phone and then you can post it. But the photos are really good. They have like little camera
Yeah,
lenses right here. The sound,
amazing.
amazing. You're
I've
walking
heard it's
around
amazing.
like
I've
no
seen
one.
friends of mine show me videos like where they go to an event and they're like, check it out. And it's like
It's
super cool.
great. And honestly, I find it easier to take photos because you don't have to take anything out. You already have your glasses on.
Yeah.
And it's more like you're living in the moment instead of
So
taking
you're
out your phone.
connected, right? It's all interconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like Bluetooth connected to your phone,
Yeah.
photos, videos, all download, super high
There's
quality. It's great.
I don't know if it's hit or not. I haven't really paid that much attention to
Yeah.
it. But
There is another, I think I saw an ad for another pair, but I don't think it has the camera. I think it just has the Bluetooth and the speakers on it.
I'm not sure. There was an HTC one that because I know a friend of mine that has this great app, this meditation app that's super cool, and they work together. Like she's on
Oh, cool.
Oculus,
Yeah.
but it's called
Hmm.
Trip VR. But she worked HTC like went and grabbed companies to help develop
Oh,
this new
cool.
thing, and so they did something for her. And I haven't seen it, but I've heard it. She said, and she's one of the smartest people I know. So um, anyway.
Y- No, yeah, no, I think it's yeah, technology's fun. It's great. I drink
Yes,
the
for sure.
Kool-Aid for sure on some stuff
Cool.
like this.
Awesome.
My Apple laptop and iPad and phone and Apple
I hear
Watch,
you.
I got it all. I'm all in the ecosystem.
All right. Cool.
Jay, I appreciate you coming on. Is
My
there
pleasure.
anywhere people can follow you for kind of updates on things you're working on? What's the best
I mean,
place?
LinkedIn, for sure.
Okay.
We're on Instagram too. ephelantsZ is on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm on, all of those. I'm not on TikTok purposely. Um, we will be as a company for the new platform that we're developing, but
Yeah.
I have no interest in being on there
Yeah.
whatsoever. And if I ever have to see something, I know enough people that have it that I can look at theirs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. So
Well, I appreciate you coming on so much.
thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks
My
again.
pleasure. All right.
Bye.
Take care.